Please welcome Matt Abbott, VP Product Marketing.
Hello, how's everyone doing today? Amazing to see everyone. Let me ask you a question in a different way because it's already been asked a few times about the first time attendees here. How many people is it the first time since COVID actually attending a user conference? Show of hands here. Well, welcome back to the world. It's amazing. I mean, we thought we were doing it, maybe not, then we thought we were doing it, and of course here we are, so it's exciting to be here in front of all of you, and I'm very excited to tell everyone and show everyone what we're actually doing, all these exciting things that ARCOS is doing this year, next year, and beyond. In this particular session, we are going to focus really on our short term. So we're not going to take a look at really the long-term vision and strategy. That's actually going to come tomorrow when we actually show kind of what our thoughts are and how we align with our customers on that journey as we move forward here. In this one, we're going to focus more on the things we've heard directly from you, the things that are impacting all of you, any type of issues that you're having or problems that you need to solve with the tools that we have, and that's really going to be the main focus for this particular session here. So let's take a look here, and before we move forward, let's actually go back, and no one wants to go back and revisit 2021, but we're actually going to do that in a very good way here. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to start off first with a thank you. And I hit the button too fast there, so let me actually go back here. It's really easy to start with a thank you because obviously that's a nice gesture, kind gesture, but the reason I'm starting with thank you is obviously, like Bruce said, you guys have a great impact on everyone's life here, but there's actually a different reason. The different reason is for all of your participation and all of your partnership and all the decisions that we make and knowing what changes to make to our product. And you all have a massive impact on that, and I'm going to show you how and why that is here. So thank you for that, starting off first here, then let me go in to show you what that impact actually looks like. So in 2021, that was my first ARCOS conference. We did it virtually. Very different setting than today where I actually get to meet you guys and put faces to the names and everything, which are fantastic. But what we did is we introduced a new life cycle for you guys, a new product management life cycle for ARCOS. And when you think about that, what Darren was saying beforehand, we completely agree with. We have this saying in the software business, it's called Nihito. Is anyone familiar with Nihito at all? Raise of hands. So a few people, and what it stands for, it's an acronym. Stands for nothing important or nothing interesting happens in the office. And we completely agree with that. And what that means, if we just sit back and come up with ideas and say, oh, this is the best idea in the world, it probably isn't. We need to get out and talk to all of you and figure out what changes make the biggest impact. So you can imagine in a pandemic year like we had last year, that was very difficult to do. And what we had to do is really think about, how are we going to drive additional user feedback from all of you? How are we going to get close to you, even though we couldn't be on the trucks with your techs or sitting with you guys side by side? And then, what tools are actually going to drive that? So last year was a big part of that, and what we introduced last year was really kind of 4 key bubbles around our product management lifecycle at ARCOS. And those 4 bubbles are really innovation, which is on the far left-hand side. And when we talk about innovation, that's stuff I'll be showing you tomorrow a lot as well. New ideas, new thoughts that are driving new changes. And what we like to get to with all of you is the comment when we show you something. You can say, that's cool, but have you thought about X? And we'll show you some of those tomorrow. Then the white space bubble is really the big problems that you guys are all solving. What big problems are you having? How can we address those big problems for you? And that's a big proponent, a big part of what we do. And then, of course, there's the customer delight side. That customer delight side, you can see that has a circle on it that's continuing. That's because what we want to do is make sure we're close to all of you, understanding what your needs are with our current products that we have, making sure we're addressing those needs and making those changes, right? And that's what this session is really about here today as we go through it. And then, of course, the rollout side, we want you to all understand the changes that we're making, right? So that's an important aspect. If we make those changes, you have no idea we made them, that's not good for anyone. So we need to make sure you understand those changes. So not only did we introduce a new life cycle, and display that to all of you last year, we also introduced several new tools. And you can see kind of, from the tools here, everything from the idea bank, which you can actually see out there, you can touch and add things now, we definitely encourage that, to really strengthening surveys that we're going out to all of you, to advisory groups, to interviews, to so many different things that we did to get close to all of you to really figure out what those changes are, right? So one of the amazing things about 2021, which was a massive win, not just for ARCOS, but for you as well in terms of the partnership between us, was the fact that last year, we collected and received over 10,000 data points from all of you, right? So you can imagine if we go in one truck roll, that's one, right? 10,000 truck rolls would be, extreme, especially during a pandemic year. But because of those new tools and those new processes that we actually introduced to you, you guys all actively participated in that. And all of that data is really driving us to make decisions about our products. So, we're not making any changes at all anymore in the ARCOS platform or beyond in our different products, Rostraps and Mobile Workbench, without first having a fact base behind it. And that fact base comes from all of you. So that's massive. And again, thank you for that, because without those 10,000 data points, we'd really be guessing about what changes we want to make, right? And that's an important aspect, for this here. Now, what do these 10,000 data points do for us? Well, starting off here, they helped us align our customer journey. So last year, we kind of showed an example of a customer journey to all of you. And this year, it's been heavily refined on how do we actually, what services and problems do we solve for you, and what does that journey look like across the spectrum? And this is really what that journey looks like. I mean, as you can see, obviously, utilities are the core focus for us, and that's not going away at all anytime soon. That's going to be extended. We're expanding functionality inside of utilities. But on the left-hand side, we've got our resource scheduling aspect of it, right, which is really that Rostraps, and we're working on an integration of that now in the product, which I'll talk about more tomorrow when we get there tomorrow. That is the advanced scheduling piece. And then the resource activation really includes three main buckets. We've got call-out, which all of you are familiar with. We've got our resource sharing, which is resource assist, where you request additional resources out to a marketplace or an ecosystem, which is where we're moving to, and those requests get filled. And you can see the numbers that Bruce showed today. I mean, fantastic numbers, like 18,000 requests fulfilled. That is absolutely growing, which is amazing. Then we've got Incident Manager, which is our ICS, or our management activation aspect of what we do here. So when you need to stand up staging sites, who's going to manage those staging sites? That's what Incident Manager does, right? And that all bleeds then into the resource identification side. So on the resource identification side, you've got Crew Manager, your digital whiteboard. We've got SMART, which is your situational awareness, of course, for when contractors are arriving to staging sites. We've got our contractor portal, which you really haven't seen yet, and that's a big part of our vision, and we'll talk more about that tomorrow as well. But if we can make it easier for the contractors, that only assist the utilities as well, and that's a big part of what we want to do in the future. And of course, all of these things, all of these three things lead in, at the end of the day, into our work management piece. And on the work management side, there's a lot of opportunity there that we see, a lot of problems that you have around manual processes that we see, in collecting that data, because you guys all do the same things, but you do it just a little bit different, which creates a challenge, but it's a challenge that we can solve here, okay? And we'll talk more about, how can we solve that challenge. Now, with this customer journey, what are we actually hearing from you? With all this data, helping us align the actual customer journey, what type of changes are you actually requesting, or what are we actually seeing from you? So to give you an idea of that, this is what we're hearing. We sent a survey out to all of you, many of you in this room right here. And what we did is we actually showed multiple things, but one of the things we showed was we showed a quick description of all of our products first, and then we ask you guys all, what are you currently using? And you can answer anything from manual to homegrown to, you have a system already, to use ARCOS already at this particular point. And you'll see the blue line up there. What the blue lines actually mean is that you're either using a manual or homegrown system for those processes, for all of the different products we have along the bottom here. So we're still seeing a ton of manual processes that you are all doing. Quick question, quick raise of hands. How many of you still have manual processes for like that customer journey I just explained? Raise your hands, any of you? Okay, so a lot of you are shaking your head yes, a lot of you are raising your hands. That's something that we're hearing a lot about, right? Now, on top of that, what we also did is we sent, in that same survey, we followed up with a second question about how like you are to change, because for us, when we look at solving problems, we want to make sure that there's some type of change that you're willing to do as well. And a lot of you said that you're willing to change on these processes here, and that's what that orange part of the top is. So we see a lot of manual processes. We see a lot of willingness to change. And one of the things I want to point out here, and this kind of goes back to more of our vision in the future, you'll notice that one of the highest rated manual processes and willingness to change was actually our product called Rostraps. Remember, this was sent to the utilities. Rostraps is that advanced scheduling component, right? So that's an important piece of what ARCOS does and what we're going to do moving forward. Then you have Smart Resource Assist, Incident Manager, Crew Manager, and then you get to Mobile Workbench. And the interesting thing about Mobile Workbench, when you take a look at that, that had the highest willingness to change, and that message was a paper to digital type message. So there must be still a lot of paper out there that you guys have that you're filling out, in the field, right? And then after that, then we've got important aspects of Mobile Workbench, which are different work types around, inspections, construction, which we had some sessions on, and damage assessment as well, right? So we're seeing a lot of manual processes out there and a lot of willingness to change, and this is where we can help you, okay? Now, one of the amazing things about this as well is then there's some nuance in the actual data and in the numbers, and this is one of the reasons I'm standing here today. So one of those nuances is we saw a lot of I don't knows also, like all of your peers were not aware that we had all these different things, that we could solve all these different problems. And that's why we're really here today. That's why we're doing this week as well, to show you guys all of the problems that we solve and make sure you understand that we're more than just call out, but we have all of these chains across the board that we can solve for you. Okay. Now, to get into it a little bit more here, it's interesting because even in some of the sessions that I've been in, there was one session prior where someone made a comment that they didn't know all the changes that we've made, right? And how many of you know all of the changes that ARCOS has made this year to all of our products? Anyone? No one does, right? So one of the things I want to point out here is that in the idea bank, you can actually go there and see all those changes. We make over several hundred changes a year to our software products, right? Several hundred changes a year. The most important changes that impact all of you are the ones that actually go in the idea bank, and you'll notice that we mark those as completed, so you can all see that they've been completed, and you can actually filter by that status. So any change that you want to see from last year that's happening like right now, you can actually go in there and see those. Now, one of the amazing things about this, again, is that not only have you all, given us that 10,000 data points, which helped us align our customer journey, but we actually took all of the highest, this is as of December actually, all of the highest rated idea bank items in here, and we got them all completed. So you can see the top rated ones and the status of completed over on the right-hand side, I'll actually show them. So your feedback directly drives the direction of ARCOS for both the short and long term. So absolutely amazing. And that's a partnership that, when we first rolled these tools out, we had no idea, how much participation we would see. We had no idea how many votes we'd see, and quickly that got adopted, and it's happening now. And there's over, I think today, when I go in there every time it changes, but we've got over 100, and I think around 150 different users in there that are registered users. We have well over 300 ideas that have been added. We've had over 77 ideas that have actually been closed out and completed in here, right? Which is amazing. That means that ARCOS is listening to you, and we've cleared out or closed out 77 of the items that have actually been added in here, which is absolutely amazing, right? So this is an important aspect of you guys giving that feedback and us going and making changes and actually doing this here. Okay. Now again, in this we're going to focus more on those kind of, the more near-term changes, the things that we've done in the past directly off this. Tomorrow we'll focus a little bit more on the actual innovation side. But in terms of the actual idea big changes, let's drill into these a little bit more here. And by the way, this is an open forum, so if you guys have questions, just raise your hand, shout it out. It's kind of hard to see with the lights, but feel free to ask any questions that you have. So that's perfectly fine for this. The first change here, and this change is an amazing change in a different way. So it's copying security groups. So the reason that this change is absolutely amazing is because this was literally the very first thing that we put in the idea bank last year. We introduced the idea bank during the actual virtual conference. I was on a call with our users and said, what's one of the things that you want? And copy security groups came up, and you can see it's my actual face on the left-hand side that added this. And then we had the most likes on this particular thing, very quickly. And so this is a big win for us. And remember, one of the things that we're always trying to do is make sure that the administration of ARCOS is easier and saves time. And this is why this change was so impactful to our customers. So, big win for the idea bank, big win for the users. It saves you time from a configuration standpoint. So important on 3 aspects here. So absolutely amazing. Next one here You know, technology is constantly changing. You guys are all aware of that. You know, we move from different, especially when you're a browser-based system, right? Different browsers constantly changing here. One of the things that happened was we kept hearing that, you know, that utilities were hanging on to IE 11, IE 9 wasn't going away, it was staying around. So we had plans to move forward to Edge, but what happened is your feedback helped us move there a little bit quicker. And one of the things I love about this here, you know, this change where we now support Edge here, is not only is this just a feedback item, but you can see the comments around this came from multiple companies and multiple users, right? And that's what we look for. Not only do we look for like the upvotes or the little thumbs up here, but if we can get multiple companies conversing, you with your peers actually conversing in here, then what we can do is it helps us drive and make better decisions about what changes to make. So all of you actually pushed and drove this change forward, and we got it done sooner because of this feedback here, okay? So another one here, ability to clear user filters. So this one actually came internally, so we put it internally, had a good amount of upvotes actually, and you know, this is another good example of a company that really, you know, even though the idea was put in by us and added by us, what they did is they helped clarify with their comment what change we should actually make. And you can actually see that comment down there. It came from First Energy, right? So not only are we looking for like upvotes, downvotes, but we're also looking for things that actually help clarify what those changes are. And in this case, it's the ability to clear user filters. So one of the things that was being asked for is during big storms, big events, there were times where we may have to clear filters for users. You know, but you know, from the suggestion, we actually just added that to the actual product to make it easier for you. And again, more configuration, more ability to control the different applications that we bring. And now you can come in here and do that here. Okay, this one right here is about surveys and survey responses. How many people send surveys out through the call-out product? Are there any in this room? Anybody in this room? I feel like everyone's being shy. Okay, so a few hands. So you do have the ability to send surveys out. And one of the things that we did here is that whenever you wanted to, you know, quickly respond to someone off of their survey, if you saw that there was a survey response in the system, you know, really simple thing. We didn't really show the phone number actually in the product beside that. So a nice request, a nice feature add request that we actually brought out here. You know, this one was generated from a customer. You know, they gave really good problem statement about what we're trying to solve here. You know, when a particular response comes in for a survey, they want to be able to call them out, but we weren't displaying the phone number. Now we display the phone number. Now you can quickly call this individual back. So a good example, again, of a change we made based off of user feedbacks and a lot of upvotes there. Okay. And this one right here is really a good one. This one actually originated from our actual advisory group for Resource Assist. So we get into our, you know, we have an advisory group for Resource Assist. Is anyone in that advisory group? Show of hands here, if anyone's in it. Yeah, so we've got a few people here. You know, we meet once a month in that advisory group. We go over everything from best practices to functional changes to RA. And this was one of those discussed directly in that advisory group. And so the change we made is really during a lodging assignment, you know, if a user already has a hotel assigned and you move that user off to another hotel, we didn't used to display a warning message at all. You could just do that, right? Now what we've done is we popped up this little warning message here. And again, it's all about reducing the amount of mistakes, kind of stopping the number of steps that you have or reducing the number of steps you have, especially during massive events or major events. So another good functional change here as well. Okay. This next one here around update custom messages. So we all know the call-out creates screen, and when you actually come in here and choose a custom message, it automatically populates that text. We were not doing that in the mobile, in the native application. So what we have seen here is we've seen obviously the native application grow, mobile grow tremendously. I mean, there's so many people using it now. You know, a lot of big numbers of people that are actually using mobile. It's becoming more important. Why is it becoming more important? Well, because obviously when you have a pandemic, you work remotely, everyone's spread out. You know, mobile becomes more important in that case, and that's what we're seeing. So there's some parity that we need to put in terms of the actual functionality in our full web versus the functionality on mobile. And this was a great example of that. This was like the highest rated mobile, item on the feedback form. So now in mobile, when you select that custom message, it automatically populates then below, whatever that custom message was below here in that text field. So again, you'll see common themes, especially in kind of our short-term vision here, reducing the number of clicks, adding configurability, making it easier for you to use the products across the board with all the products we have. So really nice little feature add, even though it was a small change, but a really powerful little feature change here. And this one was actually brought up in a prior session. So I know many of you have union rules where you may not be able to adjust, if they get a text message, it's 2 seconds after because you have a certain number of time to actually do a call out, initiate a call out. Many of you don't have that. Many of you can actually choose what those are. This is the ability to delay your SMS message, your SMS text out during call out. So when you check off SMS, you can choose the number of minutes you want to delay by. One of the things that we found inside of our product is that, regardless of union rules or not, but if a field tech is getting hit with a call, an in-app notification on the app, a text message at the same time, they may get a second text message. That's a lot of context right now in front of them, which can make it hard to actually answer the call out. So one of the top requests we had, again, was building in the ability to delay the SMS itself. Okay, now that's in here again, but again, a really highly rated item. It really helps your employees not get overloaded with those texts if you can do it as well. Now let's talk about what's next. So those are the things we did in 2021. And again, I applaud all of you because all those ideas really came from you or were upvoted by you, which gave them visibility at ARCOS. So the process works, and we've got to continue that process. But what's the future look like in the short term? And again, when we think about short term versus long term, we think kind of in what we call horizons, like these different horizon view. The horizon view I'm going to talk to you about is really this year, is the remainder of this year. And these are the number one requests we've gotten from all of you this year. So there's 3 major requests. Number 1 is mobile check-in, which we'll get into more here. Number 2 is biometrics for mobile login, making it easier for users to log in. And then the third one is being able to manually add an employee to Crew Manager for those of you that use Crew Manager here. Okay? And again, every single one of these were highly, highly voted by all of you in different means and different ways. So number 1 was mobile check-in. I'll talk about what it is, but before I talk about what it is, let me give you some backstory into mobile check-in. So we sent a survey out to our users, to all of you, and this was one of the most highly rated items actually in the survey that came back. It was actually during storm season, so that may be a factor of when we sent the survey out as well, because many of you may have had storms on the brain, some staging on the brain as well. But for those of you that don't know what mobile check-in is, it's really, when you think about mobile check-in, it really is when you have an event, all of those resources are coming into different staging areas. And what if we could just give you a QR code that you could just scan, and now that person is checked in? And not only are they checked in, but maybe there's some rules behind it which shows validation about that person's status, and also any type of rules that then direct them to the next meeting, right? Maybe they have a safety briefing after that or some training after that and so on. That's really what mobile check-in is here. So it's a very, very powerful way to speed up the process of checking your field in as they come or your contractors in. So when you think about the solution, we're generating the ability we're giving the ability to generate QR codes. With those QR codes, you can actually see them inside the application, which I'll show you, or they can actually be printed off. Once that person arrives to an actual station, you just scan it with your QR code, which will be inside of the ARCOS mobile app. There's no need for other equipment, nothing like that. It's actually inside of the ARCOS app itself. And then when they're scanned in, again, there's logic that takes place. It's not just a scan and you're done. You can set up rules and validation behind it, and I'll show you some examples of that before. So it's a very powerful tool in getting people quickly checked into staging sites here. And to show you a little bit more example here, like a real world example of what it's going to look like in the solution here, this is what it looks like in the solution. This is the QR code that someone would bring to a staging site for you guys. Again, this doesn't have to be in the app. If they don't have the app, that's okay. You can actually print this off and still scan the print. And no issues there at all with scanning the actual print. Now, to expand this functionality as well, again, on the right-hand side, you'll notice that there's this little configuration screen. What that screen does is it allows you as users, you as administrators, to come in here and set up really what the validation is behind the scenes. So it doesn't have to be the same for everyone. You can have different validation for different types of resources that are coming on site. And then they can actually display different messages as well. So you notice on the left-hand side is a nice success right there. On the right-hand side is an actual warning, and underneath that warning, you kind of get these bullet points like 1, 2, and 3. In that warning message, you can populate those with informational context, right? About why that's a warning and maybe what they need to do next step, to get past that here. Okay. So very, nice functionality in terms of like the workflow you have as someone is getting checked into the actual process. Now, along with that, again, it's not just about validation, but it's also about the next things that our users are doing, right? Or that your field techs are doing. Like, they need to check in. Do they need to go to a safety briefing? Do they need to validate ID? All these things may need to take place. This is a screen right here on the left-hand side that lets you as an administrator really set up those rules. Those different kind of rules that tell you what the next steps are across the board as you're checking a user in. So very important, product for us. A lot of requests for it from our actual user base, a lot of feedback from our user base. We're excited to get this done this year for all of you here. Solves a very big problem here. Now, from a value standpoint, what we're really looking at is, number one, again, it goes back to kind of those 3 things I was saying in our short-term vision. We want to make it easier on you, right? How do we make it easier? Well, reducing time is a big thing. If we can reduce time for those resources when they come on site in staging areas, you can have them out working faster now, which is really the biggest aspect of what mobile check-in does here. So really important change for us. We look forward to getting that in everyone's hands here as well. And if you want to see these changes, let us know, by the way. Don't be afraid. We can actually show you, mock-ups ahead of time, get your feedback on those mock-ups. In fact, that's something we would love to do. So especially, stop me or someone on the product team, and we can actually walk you through these changes. We'd absolutely love that feedback here. Okay, the next one, biometrics for mobile here. This is our #1 requested thing in our Net Promoter Score. And have any of you in the room filled out one of our Net Promoter Score surveys before? See some heads shaking yes, see some hands go up here. Those are highly important for us because, if you don't know what they are, let me kind of back up and explain what they are. In a Net Promoter Score, we ask one question. And the one question is, how likely are you to recommend ARCOS, whatever it is, ARCOS platform or ROS Straps or mobile workbench to a colleague? And it's a sliding scale of basically 0 to 10. And you can vote on what that is, but after you vote on what that is, then what pops up is a little comment box. That comment box, you can put in whatever you want, right? Whatever you want to tell us, feel free to tell us. If there's an issue you're having with the product, if there's something you don't like or something you want to add in the product, once you fill that in, now we actually see those suggestions and we take those in and we can do something about them again. Again, it's about that feedback loop, which is highly important. So biometrics for login is the #1 thing that has been requested through all of our Net Promoter Score surveys. The #1 thing, which is actually just absolutely amazing here. And when we drill into it to understand why, it really makes sense here. If the field tech, a lot of you have set already, different administration type criteria, different configuration, where you're auto-logging your users out every so often, right? And you have to do that maybe to align with your policies, and that's understood, right? We get that. That may not be able to change, but you can imagine if you're a field tech, you get a call at 3 a.m., you're logged out, first thing you have to do is log in real fast. That causes some friction for them if they have to re-log in every time. So with biometrics, one of the things that we're going to do is make sure that we actually let them log in with their fingerprint first, right? We can expand that out to other things, but this year is really focused on that. Now, seems like a simple change, but there's a few things about that. #1, it's more secure. Fingerprints are obviously very secure, and no one can watch you type that in. #2 is it also helps them, with their speed. It helps them get into the system, get into mobile, and actually accept that call out. So you should see acceptance rates also rise, with a change like that. That's this simple, right? So small change, but a mighty change, if you will. A lot of value into this change here. This next one here is one of our most requested things as well in terms of crew manager. Number one request in terms of crew manager. And many of you already know this from crew manager. Right now, when you go to put resources inside of crew manager, you have to basically do that via spreadsheet that you're uploading into the product. This change right here allows you to come in here and just, add a member directly, from the actual interface inside of crew manager. This change is very close to being done, should be done very, very short term here. We should be rolling it out, in the next month or so. I don't want to regret saying that, but I'm pretty sure that's the truth here, but we'll be good on that. But again, you can imagine what we're trying to do again here is really making sure that we're aligning the information, right? So it doesn't get lost, because there's a lot of paper. When you're working with crew managers, staffing up, you've got sharing a lot of rosters, a lot of information being exchanged back and forth. One of the things we want to do is make sure we speed that up, really, and speed up your processes, make it easier for you, which is our short-term vision again, when you think about what our theme is here. Okay. Now, really, three really key changes, three changes that are in that short term on the horizon. We've got a lot more to talk about actually tomorrow, but before I get there, there's also some additional things that we're actually doing. And again, we are seeing in our user community, through comments again, growth, right? And when I say growth, we started this call out, ARCOS is building more products. We've got 6 core products. We're kind of expanding into some additional products as well, which we'll talk about more tomorrow. But we want to have mechanisms that as you grow with the products, you can also add things on inside of the applications themselves, right? And that's an important aspect of what that growth is. So what we're doing in 2022 is adding some what we call add-ons, which are really important features, to the community here. And again, it goes back to when we think about what add-ons are, and I'll explain here in a second. We really wanted to find things that solve big challenges for all of you and say, what are those big things that actually can solve those challenges? What are the big problems you have, right? And there's already products that exist, so these are add-ons or features of products that already exist, which are important. But as you grow, we want to make sure that you can use ARCOS in different ways. So the 4 add-ons that we're rolling out here in 2022 are crew manager lodging, we've got mass calling, we've got voice rec, and then we've got SOS. And what I'll do is walk through, let me kind of explain what each one of these are here. So crew manager lodging. So what this is the proverbial, we like to have these rhyming words at ARCOS here. It's the heads to bed, right? The heads to beds. It's knowing, hotel rooms, who's actually staying in what rooms, and really making sure that people are in the correct place at the right time from a hotel standpoint. It also works to send out notifications, right? It's really, you're tracking your lodging needs. So anytime changes happen, notifications go out to make sure someone is aware of what those changes were, in terms of the actual hotel and lodging, okay? So this is a big add-on for us here that we're releasing, and we look forward to the feedback around this here. Now, 3 more here. So we've got mass calling. So when you think about mass calling is very similar to call out, except for the fact that not only can you, during some big kind of event or alert that takes place, where you can quickly notify internal people, but you can also notify external people. When I say external people, I'm talking about maybe they work at your company in different departments. Maybe it's not, maybe they don't work at your company. Maybe it's a first responder, maybe it's a contractor. You can get them in the system and actually notify them when a massive, when some type of major alert needs sent out or major event happens. Okay, then we have SOS, which is what we're also releasing SOS here. When you think about SOS, the way I think about it is like it's the panic button. It's the big thing, the big moment where you need to send something out right now, panic button. It could be due to some type of, grid failure or pipe explosion. God forbid that happens, but we do know that emergencies happen here. And the big thing about SOS is you can actually make it like location-based. So you can send out a notification directly to an entire location, telling them, hey, we have an active shooter, stay away, or whatever that communication would be. So really important communications, localizing it to a particular location or a critical staff, but it's all staff that's internal here. And that's one of the big differences when you think about SOS versus mass calling. SOS is your internal staff, again, and mass calling is your external staff here. Okay. And then the other one, I've actually heard a bunch of comments about this already with voice rec. Bruce talked about it earlier today. From a voice rec standpoint, we want to make sure that as these resources are working, as they're driving, if they're up in a bucket truck on a line, they can't actually answer the phone. We want to make sure to give them the ability where they can actually verbally respond, right? And so that's not just to things like a mobile workbench, which some of you may have seen earlier, but also respond to things in call out as well. So when you can't actually touch the device, still give them the ability to come in here and actually, answer callouts, respond to callouts, important things here. And again, all of these go back to really driving up, that call-out acceptance rate, trying to improve that call-out acceptance rate, but also make it easier, for you and all of your users to actually use our product line as a whole across the board here. Okay. Now, what we've done, we've got about 10 minutes left, and we left questions here, for the audience. Again, tomorrow, I think the big thing tomorrow is I'm really excited about tomorrow's session, because what we're going to show you tomorrow is actually walk through what our roadmap looked like a strategic roadmap. Talk to you guys about that vision and strategy in tomorrow's session, plus also show you a lot of the cool things and innovative things we're working on. Things around anything from an ecosystem for resource sharing to artificial intelligence, some new models that we've created. That's really in tomorrow's session here. So any questions in the short term here, any Q&A or questions about what I've showed you today, and please do not be shy at all here. I thought there'd be more questions. You guys are all tired from eating too much food here. Were there free drinks, Bruce, out there for lunch? You get everyone. Someone snuck some in here, and that's why everyone's so quiet right now, right? I think we've got one question right there, John, in the back.
Hey, I'm Patrick from Jackson EMC. I've got a question about Crew Manager. So everything you mentioned sounds really good for a storm situation. What does it do for us, Blue Sky? Because whenever we're doing something, we want to make sure we get full bang for our buck.
I love that question. Jason, are you in here? Singer? You want to grab the mic, man? So Jason Singer's the product manager of Crew Manager, and we actually talk about that all the time. I'm going to let him answer that here.
Yeah, no, great question. So a lot of the customers here are actually using Crew Manager, both Blue Sky and Storm. Mm-hmm. I don't know if Luke is in the room from Tico. He loves sharing he's actually presented in previous conferences exactly how they convert from Blue Sky to Storm and then back to Blue Sky. And with the integration with Callout, all of your, you can build crews using the Callout tool to populate people based on their real-time ability, not their schedule, but are they actually going to be available to work? Were they held over last night? Are they needed to come in after hours? So with that integration, you have both Blue Sky and Storm usage. Does that answer your question?
Sort of. I get how having resources in there could help a little bit, but I guess maybe it's a deeper question than is going to be answered in 5 minutes.
Yeah, and what we can do, we can meet with you offline here and kind of drill in that a little bit more. And have you seen it yet? Have you seen Crew Manager? Okay, because that may answer some questions as well if we show you that. Yeah. Okay.
Shameless plug for Test Drive Alley. If you want to go out there.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Thank you. Yeah, Test Drive Alley.
Engineers there will talk about Blue Sky all day.
Very true.
Over here.
Another question over here? Great,
yep.
Great.
Coming. I know.
I know, this is a big room when you have one mic. Oh, we got a second mic there. Yeah, perfect.
Can you talk about the add-on for the hotel piece in Crew Manager? Just a little bit, explain that a little bit more.
Yeah, I can. So with the add-on, with that add-on in Crew Manager, that's where you can literally put hotels in there, understand what beds you actually have, what rooms you actually have, and actually assign resources to those hotel beds. And then, of course, if you need to transition them out, you can transition them to something else. And then there's actually like notifications that happen, after that transition occurs. That's like the 50,000-foot view. Jason, do you want to kind of drill in deeper here on this as well?
Yeah, sure. Was it Chris who asked that question? Yeah. So Eversource already uses Crew Manager. One of the things that ARCOS is going to be rolling out is how the add-on for lodging is going to work for new customers coming on board or during the renewal process. So I don't see any impact to you right now. Oh, Matt, one other piece of good news I just want to add. That enhancements that you talked about manually being able to add a new employee into Crew Manager, that's actually rolled out already.
Good, yeah.
So
that's great to hear.
It's not coming, it's already there.
Great to hear. We planned that, by the way. We planned that dialogue. We knew that was going to happen. Okay, other questions here. I've seen several hands go up here. We've got one right here, John.
I'm closer.
Or Tammy, whoever gets there first. John won. John won. Good job, John. Good job.
Art Romero, San Diego Gas and Electric. When you say add an employee to crew manager, we already add employees when we go and use the little head icon to add someone into a perspective. So when you say add an employee, is that adding them into the ARCOS database? And if that's the case, do you still have to go to the profile and add all the other attributes to that profile?
Yeah, Jason. Just leave the mic with Jason. Just keep the mic, Jason. Keep the mic here.
To add a piece of clarity to that, it's actually adding a contractor employee.
Yeah.
So it's not adding an internal employee. That would still be the same process. Currently, to add a contract employee, you either have to import them through the data import process or bring them through Resource Assist. But adding one, importing is kind of bulky, so now you can just type it right into the system.
Jason, can you repeat that question with the mic?
Oh, yeah. He asked how it gets saved into the database. It would get saved as an imported employee, the same as if they came in through a template. The only issue is all that we're bringing in is the name, first name, last name. Any other attributes would need to be entered in Crew Manager.
Great. I think all of you can tell who the Crew Manager guru is in the room. Jason. Okay. We have some additional questions. Right here.
Hi, Sean Raz from Avangrid. I guess a two-part question about single sign-on and biometrics. One, is anybody actually using single sign-on and found any success with it?
We do have a few customers using this. Yeah.
And how do you get through the single sign-on issues with biometrics? How does that sync back to their password? How do you get over the IT battle of the 6-month renewal on the password, all the different attributes that come with password security?
Yeah, we've thought a lot about that. And the reality with that is that biometric is actually key to like a 4-digit PIN behind the scene inside of the actual operating systems themselves. So if you've got single sign-on, what you may do is you may actually elect to turn that off, right? So you actually force them to still enter the password, that they use for their actual network itself. So there will be some configuration options, for that. Yeah, go ahead.
So then what happens when I reset their password as an admin?
Yeah.
How do they, how does that, right? So you're saying turn off single sign-on, so it's no longer linked to their network password. Why go to single sign-on if we're going to do biometrics? They seem to compete each other.
I see what you're saying. So the reason I can answer that last question, right? The reason for the last question is if they're not using single sign-on, we're trying to provide a really easy way for them to actually log in. The question before that, PJ, where are you? PJ Haley, way in the back. Oh my God, he's going to take 2 minutes to get a mic.
No, I'm faster than that, Jason.
We'll let PJ answer the second question here.
So when we talk about SSO and biometrics, the SSO is typically, I believe, facilitated through some form of integration. Biometrics is primarily going to be for the customers who don't have SSO. It's going to be those who rely on the password resets, the actual password process. When that password expires, you're going to need to renew it, and then your biometrics will work again. Because of the industry requirements for safety and security, that password reset will have to be facilitated the way it is today. It just ties back into biometrics to speed up that access step.
Okay, that answer everything? Okay, great. We've got another question here.
It's more of a comment. So we use the single sign-on and have had success with it finally, which our guys really love, with not having to use a ton of new passwords. But the primary reason we use that is the biometrics. A lot of our iPads are older and they don't have that. Only the pros that we now have that feature. So we wouldn't be able to take advantage of it at this time, but as we renew the iPads, we plan to buy the newer ones that would have the biometric.
Yeah, which is a good point. Yeah, and you can imagine there's different ways to log in now. I mean, even with Face ID, that's something in the future for us as well we're looking at. So there's good points. Okay, any other questions here? Don't be afraid to ask. Okay. Well, we are a little bit, we're actually just right on time here. Remember, the one thing I will say before we close out is thank you all for that feedback. If you ever get anything from us, whether it's NPS, survey, go to the feedback forum, we are looking at every single one of those things as you answer those, right? So do not hesitate on that. If you think it's not real, but it's from ARCOS, send us a note and ask us. Say, hey, is this real? We've had a few people do that. Is this a real survey actually from ARCOS? And a lot of times it's yes. I haven't seen one yet that wasn't actually from us directly. But that feedback is highly important, especially as we're trying to scale up, what those changes are we're trying to make here. Okay. So yeah, so thank you everyone, and definitely drink a lot tonight. No, I'm not advocating for that. I think Bruce was earlier, but be ready to go at 8 o'clock. We've got the innovation roadmap session tomorrow, 8 o'clock. A lot of cool stuff in that. So look forward to that as well here. Okay. Thank you.
All right, folks, so you've got 15 minutes. Please come back here. We're going to talk resource sharing starting right at 2 o'clock. Okay, so you got a little less than 15. All right? Thank you. Don't forget to fill out your surveys for the session and submit any questions if you have any.